Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from round 2 of this year's Ciudad de Sevilla or the Sevilla Open 2024. It is an absolute privilege to show you this game as we've featured Miao Lu a couple of times on the channel. For those of you who are not familiar with her style, I will include a link, first link in the description below. Watch that game. It's from the Serbian Women's League. It was played last year, also an incredible attacking game, but this one well, there were great attackers throughout chess history. I mean, if we go really back, you had Paul Morphy, you had Andersen, then maybe going a little bit forward, you had maybe I don't know, Rudolf Spielmann, you had Velimirovic. Then going more forward, you had Mikhail Tal. Then even more forward, you had Kasparov. But in modern times, okay, you have Dubov and other great players. But there was one that really stood even above all of them, and that is the true legend of attacking chess. Okay, Mikhail Tal is on the absolute top level. He is of course a legend, but there is the man who never goes back, the no reverse gear Rashid Nejmetdinov. And Miao Lu style, if I have to pick one attacker, it does definitely remind me of the great Rashid Nejmetdinov. Let's just check out the game. And for those of you who don't appreciate being shown a lot of variations, maybe you don't have time, maybe you're a very busy person, I will also include a really quick overview of the game at the end of the video, maybe like a 1 minute, just for you to appreciate the moves. But if you have time, I invite you to appreciate the magic as well. So let's check it out. 13-year-old women grandmaster Miao Lu versus 31-year-old Italian grandmaster Andrea Stella. Let's check it out. So Ponte e4, as it is best by test. We have Ponte e6, the French defense by Andrea, and now d4. We have Ponte d5, and now knight to c3. We have Ponte d5, knight to c3, and knight to f6, going for the sort of a classical variation of the French, not going into the Wiener. Ponte e5, the Steinitz variation, advancing the pawn, knight fd7, and Ponte f4. We have Ponte c5, very principled, attacking white's strong center, knight to f3, and now knight to c6. And here bishop to e3. So okay, the bishop has been developed. You know that queen is coming to b6 to put pressure on that b2 pawn. But first, pawn to a6. You want to stop the knight from coming to b5. And here we have a fairly rare move. Now, there are over 1,000 games with queen to d2. It is the main line. But here we have knight to e2. And this is less than 100 games in the database, and it's been played by some strong players like Topalov beat Morozovic with knight to e2. Also Fabiano Caruana in last year's Norway Chess defeated Magnus Carlsen with this move, so it has been played on the absolute top level. Okay, queen b6, putting pressure on white center. That's what you do if you play the French. You attack the b2 pawn as well, and you prepare to undermine white's strong center with pawn to f6. Okay, queen c1, guarding b2, and now bishop to e7. We have pawn to c3, strengthening the center here, and just castles kingside. And now in the game that I mentioned where Caruana defeated Carlsen in the 2023 Norway Chess, Caruana continued with the g3. And the g3 is one of the top recommended engine moves, but Miao Lu goes for pawn to h4. So this is the absolute top move recommended by the engine. And it is still not a new position. So pawn to f6, challenging white's strong center here. Pawn to h5, okay, now you have to stop pawn to h6, so pawn to h6 by black, and rook to h3. She just, wants to bring everything into the attack right away. Rook to f7, setting up a defense, and now there is a game Jordan Fanfores played against Etienne Bacrot that ended in a draw where king to f2 was played, and it is the top move recommended by the engine. But here, Miao Lu goes for rook to g3, just, straight up forward. And it is now, as of move 14, that we have a completely new game. And okay, queen to a5, a pretty standard idea. You want to put pressure on the white center as the c-pawn is now pinned. So bishop to d2, aligning the bishop nicely with the queen. We have queen back to c7, and now queen to c2, preparing maybe to castle queenside, but also looking at queen to g6, followed by queen captures on h6. But Andrea says, nope, that's not a problem, just pawn to b5. And indeed, queen to g6 looks very scary. But if you play the French, of course, you are used to that. It doesn't matter if it looks scary, you will play it. And I will just briefly show you what queen to g6 does. You just play b4 as usual. Of course, queen to h6 will be played, but just b captures on c3. The g7 pawn is nicely defended, and after, let's say, b captures, bishop to d8. And now, okay, you want to prepare the advancement of the h pawn. Now comes knight to e7. You kick away the queen, and if you want to continue attacking, just knight to f5. Now you defend g7 once again. You attack the rook here, and if rook to h3, trying h6 and maybe to give up the rook here. Not to give up, as the pawn cannot capture. You want to play h6, captures and captures. The idea is knight to h6, stopping the pawn, attacking the queen, and once the queen comes to g6, even knight to f8, further kicking the queen back. And now you just continue playing. Pawn to a5, bishop can come to a6. It's a very nice position for black. So that's the idea here. It's still, of course, very much playable for white, but black should be able to defend. So she just castles queenside here. And now pawn to f5, stopping any queen to g6 ideas. And now you could continue this, you know, with some king to b1 move, or you could bring the rook to g6, or you could play d captures on c5, but not Miao Yilu. She just goes forward, knight to g5. She says, okay, the e6 pawn is weak. You have to capture on g5 as your rook is also under attack here. So there's no question here. The knight must be accepted. H captures on g5. F captures on g5, and now we have C captures on d4. Already a suboptimal move, but I often say that it's easier to attack than it is to defend. You have to be an incredibly strong player in order to defend well under pressure. And here, objectively best would just be to give back material. Knight C captures on e5, you destroy white's strong center, knight captures, and that's pretty much it. If g6, you don't have to worry about anything, and if h6, you can just play g6, and that's perfectly fine. Even if g6, rook h6, and now if h6, the g6 pawn will be weak as it's attacked by the rook and by the knight. But C captures on d4 was played first, and it seems like a move you want to play. Of course, you want to open up the c file, move the bishop, put the rook on c8 to go after the white king. The problem is now, after C captures on d4, you no longer have this option of eliminating white's strong center, as the queen on c7 is undefended. So, okay, knight to b6 was played, and now pawn to g6, attacking the rook here, rook to f8, and of course pawn to h6, just marching forward. No funny business here. And okay, knight to c4, putting as many pieces as possible in front of the white king. Now comes a nice calm king to b1. You think it's a defensive move, but it's really an attacking move. With pawn to f4, again, maybe a bit too optimistic, slowly developing with bishop to d7, then bringing the rook to c8 should be the way to go. But pawn to f4 was played, idea being that the rook now will come to f5, you will develop the bishop and then bring the other rook to f8, claiming the f file for yourself. Now comes bishop captures on f4, g captures on h6, bishop captures on h6, and the rook to f5. And okay, you again blocked the queen. You don't have to worry about the attack. You will now get the other rook into the game. For the moment, you can't use the f8 square, but maybe you can just play bishop f8 and eliminate the bishop here. So here, rook to h3. What is the plan here? Well, you have to see the next move to understand. We have queen to a5, now preparing some knight to b4 ideas with queen captures on a2, but just queen to c1. She wants to bring the queen into the attack as soon as possible. And now the problem is, if you go knight b4, and again, it looks very scary, there's this simple knight c3, and black has nothing here. There's no way to improve the attack. There's no way to actually try anything here, and it's just a much better position for white. It's a winning position for white. So instead, bishop to d7 is played. It is essential to bring the bishop to e8 to help out with the defense. And now you could go for something like knight to f4, but she prefers to keep the knight here to be able to bring it back to c3 to help out with the defense of the a2 pawn. Now pawn to g4, forcing the rook back, or to capture on f1. And since black is already up a piece, he decides to give up the rook for the bishop here. So he will be up, he will have two pieces for the rook. So rook captures on f1, rook captures on f1, and now bishop to e8. This is an essential move for black. If you allow rook to f7, it's game over. There's no defense here. For example, if you play something like rook to c8, okay, it looks very scary. Just rook f7 and rook g7 check next. It's unstoppable, and that's pretty much it. You either go under the mask of the bishop or here face the rook on the h file. Both is terrible. So instead, bishop e8, the only move for black, and now pawn to g7. Now, Miao Yilu is such a spectacular attacker that I will show you a move that she could have played, but she didn't, as it's insufficient. There is this possibility of queen g5. Looks flashy, and you know it's a queen sacrifice, but of course black will not capture and allow checkmate. If queen to g5, you can just counter it with a nice queen to b4, threatening checkmate, and now you have to go back with the queen. So while impressive, doesn't really do all that much. You have to go back, and then comes bishop captures and g6 with check, king to a1, and black is back in the game. So she waits. She plays pawn to g7. Now the threat is, of course, rook to f8 check, and it's game over. Now the bishop is in the way here. You have to do something about it. So bishop to g6 with check. Now the rook gains access to the f8 square, king to a1, and now knight to b4. Again, looks very scary. Is that white king getting checkmated? Not really, but not with knight to c3. Knight to c3 would be terrible here. If you play knight c3, you actually get checkmated. Knight c2 check, king b1. You face our good friend the bishop on g6. Now just knight captures on d4 with check, and once the king moves, knight to b3 will be checkmated. The pawn cannot capture, and the b1 square is covered by the bishop. So she plays pawn to a3. Absolutely incredible that such a defensive idea is even an option with two knights, queen, and the bishop, lurking from the back. But it is possible. However, the attack will no longer happen for black or for white, because knight to c2 check, and now what do you play here? If you go king a2, it's just a repetition. Knight b4 check, king a1, knight c2 check, king a2, knight b4 check. It's a draw by threefold repetition. But Miao Yilu, like Rashid on that special day before he prepared queen captures on f6, she said, nope, I don't feel like drawing this game. She played queen captures on c2. Just a straight up queen sacrifice, and it's not not a correct one if you ask our good friend the engine, but we are not asking our good friend the engine. We are asking Andrea Stella here, and also you guys. So what is the idea behind the queen sacrifice? Bishop captures on c2 was played, and now she played rook h to f3 with this terrible threat of rook to f8 check, and now black is winning here. But here Andrea had 3 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock to organize some sort of a defense here. It's not easy, but you guys will get a chance just to feel the position. Even allow yourselves 3 minutes and 50 seconds if you want to get in Andrea's shoes. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the only move that wins for black while I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on winning this position with black. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the only move that wins is king to h7. And it's such an ugly move to make with all of this happening here, but it comes with a very straightforward idea that rook to f8 does not come with check. And now there doesn't seem to be a good way for white to continue the attack. If you continue with your standard rook to f8 threatening g8 queen, then just bishop captures. And now if rook captures, you no longer control the back rank. And now queen to e1 check. How do you prevent this? If you go king a2, then queen to b1 is checkmate, and if you block this, let's say knight to c1, then there's this very nasty king captures on h6. And now it doesn't matter what you do, because queen will capture on c1 with check. Even if you bring a queen into the game, queen captures with check, king a2, and queen to b1 will be checkmate. So king to h7, the absolute best way to play this. But it's still very unclear. I mean, even if you play king to h7 and you find all of this, there's still moves you have to calculate, like rook to h3. How do you defend against rook to h3? Where is black going from here? Well, you have to allow discoveries and play pawn to b4. But I mean, yeah, with 4 minutes on the clock, you just don't calculate that. And okay, there's another possibility after rook h to f3. Even if you don't find king to h7, you can still just say, okay, we go back, queen d8, the queen covers the f8 square. I'm just going to defend this. But the problem is now rook to f8 will not be played. Now comes knight to f4, and the game just continues. But you have to calculate all of this with less than 4 minutes on the clock. So what actually happened in the game, after this rook h to f3 move is not knight captures on a3, the move you might expect, because although it looks incredibly impressive, just rook to f8 check will end the game. I can even show it if you guys don't believe me. Bishop captures, rook captures with check, and now you either move the king and allow g8 queen, or you capture, then g8 g captures on f8 queen, king h7, and now queen to g7 will be checkmate. However, in the game, bishop to f3 was played, and it's actually a good practical decision, which is the third top move recommended by the engine. It sort of cuts off the rook from having access to the f8 square, and the idea is, okay, I give up the bishop and then I take on a3 and the white just falls apart. But it doesn't really work. G captures on f5 was played. Now comes bishop captures on a3. Knight captures also wouldn't make much of a difference. Now just b captures on a3, and it looks like you shouldn't be able to do this. Knight captures on a3, again, you know, facing all of these nasty discoveries, but now f captures on e6. And now look at this. Where can the black king go? The f7 square has been taken, this is taken, this is taken. You can go to h7, but then of course you know that the rooks are coming to the h file. But doesn't black have some sort of a checkmate here? Knight to c4 check was played. We have king to b1 and now king to h7. Sidestepping all of the rook f8 check business, but now of course the rook comes to the h file. Rook to h1, and again black starts checking. Queen to b4 with check, king to c1, queen to b2 with check, king d1, and now fortunately there's no, well, fortunately for Miao Yilu, there's no queen d2 because the bishop covers that square. So queen to b1 with check, we have bishop back to c1 now with a discovery, and that's pretty much it. You don't really have a good move here, because if you go for example to g6, then just g8 queen with check, and once the rook captures, look at this, rook to h6 with check, king g7, and rook to f7 is checkmate. So unfortunately you can't go down the board. So after this bishop to c1 check, he had to go up the board, king to g8, but now look, there are no squares for the black king, and now rook to g3. It is important to defend the pawn, or you could also capture the pawn, but that just runs into a rook to g3 check, king to f8, and now rook to h8 with check, king e7, rook to g7 with check, king captures on e6, rook to h6 with check, king to f5, and now look at this, knight g3 checkmate. Absolutely incredible. The bishop that is stopping the queen from checkmating the white king also prevents the king from coming to f4, and it is checkmate here. So that's why you can't go to g6, you cannot capture on g7, you have to go to g8, and now of course it's merely a matter of defending the g7 pawn, and now rook to h8 will be checkmated. There's no stopping this. Few more checks are possible as they were made. Knight to b2 check, king to d2, knight back to c4 check, but now king to e1, preventing any and all checks from the knight, and also the queen has no more checks. You could give one, queen to b4 check, but then just king f2, and then you're out of checks. So here, queen to b4 check was played, but now also knight to c3, and it was in this position on move 46 that Andrea Stella resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. There is no move here. Whatever you play, except something like queen captures on c3, but you don't have enough material to do that, rook to h8 is checkmate on the next move. And that's pretty much it. I mean, absolutely incredible game, you know, worthy of the old masters, you know, just sacrificing the knight for the attack, which, okay, a lot of people would do, even though maybe objectively it's not the best, but it's best if you're an attacking player. But then giving up the queen in that position, I mean, what a move. We can even check it out one more time. I mean, look at this. Your opponent is here threatening all sorts of, you know, repetitions with knight b4, knight c2, knight b4, knight c2, knight b2, and you just play queen captures on c2, give up the queen like this, and then just shatter the black king's defenses. Even though objectively black is winning, but you have to find king to h7, which, I mean, with less than 4 minutes on the clock, it was impossible to do. So yeah, beautiful stuff by Miao Yilu. Very much looking forward to seeing more of her attacking games. She is an attacking player. Most of her games are wild like this, so I'm pretty sure this is you know, only the first one will be showing this year, as you know, it's only January, but already we have started strong. And now for those of you who maybe didn't have enough time to watch the entire analysis, I will just quickly go through the game. So it was a nice French defense, you know, the classical variation, not going for the winner. This is all pretty standard stuff played by, you know, top grandmasters. Now a fairly rare move, but it has been played. You know, Caruana defeated Carlsen with it in the 2023 Norway chess. She goes for h4, h5, you know, just brings the rook into the game. Rook to g3 sets up an attack here. And then, okay, queen c2, maybe threatening queen g6, but it wasn't played. And then, okay, knight g5, we have a beautiful knight sacrifice here. The knight had to be accepted. We have captures, knight b6, and now g6. So, okay, pawns marching forward. We have knight c4, opening of the f-file, and after the queen was set up to come to h6, some more moves were made. Captures, bishop to e8, and now pawn to g7. And here is where the magic happens. Bishop to g6 check, king a1, knight b4 threatening mate, so stopping it with a3. Incredible that the move is even possible here. But now after knight to c2, she sacrifices the queen. Bishop captures and now goes for the attack. Rook to f3, bishop to f5, cutting off the rook from going to f8, and now just pawn captures. We have a capture on a3, captures, and the king hunt begins, but also the hunt on the black king begins. We have knight f5, king b1, and now after a few more moves were made and the bishop covering d2, so you don't have checkmate, black soon ran out of checks. Bishop to b1, also bishop to c1 also comes with a discovery. King to g8, and now rook to g3, and there's no stopping rook to h8 checkmate. One more check was given here after queen b4 check, knight c3, and the game ended with an unstoppable mate coming on h8. So that's sort of the short version, but if you've only seen that and if you don't believe it, watch the longer version and you will believe it. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Brilliant stuff by Miao I am, you know, as usual, like in the previous game that I've shown you by Miao If you haven't seen it, first link in the description below. It's an absolute must. I'm, you know, privileged to be able to show you this, and that also, you know, one of the reasons that I'm glad that this channel exists. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Mark Henley Brennan, Brian Paquin, Yun Young, Carol Bott, and Johan Klessens for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day, and follow up with the link in the description below. First link. See you soon.